Easy E, how are we?
Shawnee, another week, another training session. Oh.
Eric, I'm not going to lie, we're going to have to keep this intro short because we're just after recording that podcast with Gary Byrne, who did your bike fitting, who's getting you set up on the bike that's going to bring you to success. Well, if absolutely better after listening to this episode of the podcast, because he has you nailed down to a T on like just the efficiency of what you're doing on the bike. My mind is blown. There's actually a middle segment to this part of the podcast where we hope it translates on audio, but if it doesn't, we're going to have a YouTube link for those that are really thinking about getting a bike fit. Now, if you're not getting a bike fit, there's still a lot to get from this podcast because it's a phenomenal listening. There's a lot of stuff in this I had to clear with a bike, and you're probably listening to the podcast going, Sean, we've seen you on your better half's bike, and that helmet does not fit your head. Of course, you better have gotten something from this podcast. You don't even own a bike, you sap.
This episode is something that if I had heard when back in 2019, I would have been all over it like white on rice now, to be honest. It was something that would have saved me a lot of struggles. I probably would have been more efficient. I probably would have enjoyed cycling a lot more than I did initially, because I do enjoy it now. It's the one part I actually do enjoy. And Gary goes into a hell of a lot of detail. Again, we apologize for those who are listening. There's a lot of visuals that show, just to show Sean what it is. We are going to follow this up with a full video of me going through a bike fitting in the coming week. So if it didn't make sense for anyone, don't worry, keep an eye on the Instagram. We're going to go through the fit and you'll see the stories and we'll talk you through me going through my new bike fitting. But apart from that, just embrace someone who knows a hell of a lot about the sport and knows so much about getting you on the right bike, and we just have to let this one run and let Gary take over.
Yeah, let's just hit the intro. This week's episode of the Any Given Runday Podcast. Let's go. So before we ever started doing this podcast, the Any Given Runday Podcast, I would have no idea. If you gave me a couple of different questions on what is bike fit, I probably wouldn't get it right or have a clue what's going on until Eric, you brought up in the podcast out of the blue, gave me no hints on it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Eric, now you've got someone else to explain what exactly a bike fit or bike fit you called at the time is. What is going on with this? What exactly does it do? It's not exactly just how fit you are spinning in a spinning studio or anything like that. So what is bike fit and what's going on with it?
Bike fit's a little bit more than a spin class, all right. And to be honest, I knew nothing about it myself. I bought a bike in 2019 and I went into the shop and I said, I know nothing about bikes. And they said, here you go. And I said, thanks very much. And off I went. And I probably cycled a bike that when I did my triathlons in 2019, that didn't fit me or wasn't fit right to me. Probably cost myself so much pain and anguish by cycling this thing that was just not right for me. But I didn't know any different. And then we did Mizzen to Malin and we went into Cycle Superstore and we went looking for sponsorship with the Air Corps. And in fairness, they were so good to us. And I just seen, I was like, bike fit. I was like, what's going on in here? And I just walked in and I was like, do you do bike fittings? And he was like, yeah. And this is why we're bringing on the expert in bike fittings. And it's Gary Byrne. Gar, thanks so much for coming on to join us. How are you keeping?
All good, yeah. Thanks for having us on there. And I do tend to run on, so if I start talking too much, put a stop up on me there. But I'm here to answer any questions, inform people about the art of bike fitting. And just about myself there, I am based in the Cycle Superstore. I was a manager with the guys there for over 10 years, and the opportunity came in to actually take over a bike fitting business that was on site. And since that, I did that in 2019. I've been learning more and more by the week about the biomechanics of how to get people fitted on the bike ride, how to minimize injury, how to get the max power out of people. I find it extremely rewarding just dealing with people as they come in. Everyone has their own story. Everyone has a bit of difference wrong with them. Everyone has some little niggles they need to actually remove. And the person who's actually sitting on their bike thinking they're grand, I can cycle behind them for 2 minutes. I can find them 5 different things that are just wrong. Just that extra couple of little mil to get an extra bit of power out of them. Get about an extra bit of comfort, especially on the longer days.
So just to give a background into us, so I've got a bike fit from Gar and we did the Ring of Kerry cycle, but luckily the last time I fitted, you fitted me for the Ring of Kerry. So I felt very comfortable on my bike on the Ring of Kerry. Sean was cycling his missus's bike, which is about 1-2 sizes too small for him.
Gary, everything was on my fit, and the helmet didn't even fit my head, Gary. That's how bad I am. So if I'm very quiet in this episode of the podcast, it's because I'm absorbing the whole thing. I got one mouth and 2 ears for a reason. I tend to use my 2 ears for most of this podcast. Gary, how did you get into bike fitting?
I've been selling high-end bikes for over 20 years now, in and out of various bike shops around the town. And it's something the opportunity came to actually buy the business as a retail fitter and get the retail business license. So retail will be the premium bike fitting technologies that are out there. There are 3D motion capture cameras and a lot of it, actual in-depth details. But again, came into it actually, the guy who was there ahead of me was actually emigrating back to Australia. The opportunity was there to take over the business. And I'd watched him fitting over the 5 or 6 years he was there in the Superstore before me. And I saw that the quality of the fits he was doing, how good the results people are getting out of it. And I'm really happy I did actually take the plunge and actually invest in myself there and actually take the chance.
But it wasn't like you didn't know anything about bikes. You've been in the industry for years and you cycle a hell of a lot yourself. You can feel yourself when it's not right.
Yeah, no, like I know myself. Like I've never driven a car in my life. I commute everywhere around Dublin by bike, by various machines, depending on what I'm doing. I worked as a courier throughout most of the 90s, doing crazy mileage around town. Did bits of racing here and there, and more so the longer distance endurance stuff. Once the legs are right, I'm actually able to get out in it there. But yeah, it's from experience of getting people. Like when you buy a bike in the shop, there, most of the staff would be in any bike shop would be able to get people to within a centimetre of being ideal, but that'll last. Centimetre is the key one. Getting the saddle just perfect and getting the foot position, cleating position is immensely important. Just getting the feet over that there. But it's from a build up of the knowledge, and I've had to relearn a couple of times because the stuff we knew in the 90s doesn't hold anymore for a lot of the stuff because the bikes have changed. The biomechanics we thought of in the early 2000s, that's actually been improved on and actually refined because we have 3D motion capture camera. You've got parameters on bikes. We've got the data coming back in off riders where we can actually see. Try this, same rider, try another thing, different position, and try it again. See what the power outputs and see what the aerodynamics are like on you, just to fine tune it. And all that data is feeding back into the number pool that we're using.
Again, like we're so numbers driven. Like everyone's wearing a Garmin now. Everyone's looking to get that extra mile. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago, people trying to do the sub-8, sub-7 Ironman. All of it was data. They're coming off bikes and they're piercing their ears just to get a blood sample just to see how they're reacting to food on bikes. So data is important, but in terms of the average Joes, like we are and what we are, I want to be average. I don't think I'm going to be an expert level, but I don't want to be in pain doing it. And that starts with the right bike choice. So I suppose, Gar, when people come in, what should they be looking for? Because people are going to throw around carbon frame, aluminium frame, this fork, that fork, wheels bigger than me, like what do you do when you walk into the shop and you go, well, first of all, you walk into the right shop, as you said, staff know what they're looking for, but what do you look for when you're looking for that first bike?
Well, if I was looking for competition grade bikes for people who are getting into the sport, I'd be looking at least 10-speed drivetrain on it. So in Shimano, that'll be a Tiagra drivetrain. And a bike like that will generally start off with aluminium and a carbon fork. And these days it's pretty much all disc wheels, but there are still some rim brake wheels lying around there. That in somewhat the right size, because the final details of bike fitting can actually be changed on quite a lot of the machines, where you can get the last couple of mil adjusted just to fine tune the rider. And if a guy is in between two sizes, you're actually generally better off going the smaller of the two, because you can always make the smaller bike that bit bigger. A bigger bike, you will be stuck. Now, in 2020, when bike stocks were really, really low, we got a lot of people working on the bikes that we had in stock just because they were the only things optional. But now, when you're between the two sizes, we go edge on the size on the edge of caution and actually go a little bit smaller because we can always increase it out.
And just to explain that, so sizes of bikes come in inches. So for me, Mongo, secondhand is not really an option for me because my size frame was a 62-inch frame.
Yeah, that's in centimeters, so 62 centimeters.
Or centimeters, sorry. Yeah. And the average is around the 54, 52,
55, 56. Yeah, depending on the finishing kit on it.
So that's what you mean by bike size frame. So it's better to be in the centimeter smaller than the bigger because, as you said, you're stuck. And then the speeds are essentially a 10 speed is you've got 20 gears.
Yeah, so 10 gears on the rear, and then it's up to 12 now at the minute with competition bikes.
And Sean learned about what that was when you're going up a hill, and when you click and nothing happens, you're out of gears.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. The thing about the bikes the past 10 years is the lower gear has actually got a lot lower. So bike from 15 years ago, you'd be harder pushing climbing the hill now to what we have now, because the lowest gear makes it easier to climb and spin the legs up a bit faster, because it's all about the spins now.
That's the difference. So you just touched on there a second ago. Now I'm going to butcher a conversation Eric had with one of our friends in the ring, Kerry, a couple of weeks ago. He had an old Lance Armstrong bike. He says he has, and he says that it was more about pounding the gears or pounding the thing, whereas now it's more about spinning now these days. Without saying he's right, because I'd hate for him to listen to the podcast and hear he was right and anything, how much has bikes changed over the years? Like, so if someone had a 10-year-old bike, like, are you cycling it differently to how you'd cycle it now? Or cycling, or
the gearing technology has got better to make a bigger gear possible on the rear, which actually makes it easier to climb a hill. Now, from the coaching books I have from the mid 80s to the 90s, it was all about pushing a bigger, harder gear, but that was the manufacturing technology was the limit of that. You only had 7 or 8 speeds on the rear, and you couldn't get so big. So the bigger the sprocket is in the back, the easier it is to pedal up the hill.
Okay.
An early 2000s, mid 2000s bike, the highest range of gears you'd have on the rear, the 11 teeth on the smallest, and probably 27 on the biggest. Now the 12-speed bikes now have 11 sprockets, 10 sprockets in some cases, or 10 gears on the lowest, and up to 34, 36 on the rear. So you're almost like a mountain bike gear range on the rear. So it does make it a lot easier to climb the hill. But the answer, unfortunately, is, now we know it's more bioefficient to actually pedal faster with less strain on the muscles. And it's like going to the gym and lifting many reps of a 2 kilo weight, then really straining yourself and trying to lift the 20 kilo weights and actually straining. It's like pushing a bigger gear is like lifting weights, whereas spinning a gear is like doing cardio. And it's more efficient on the body.
It's more efficient for cycling to move faster than slower, more resistance.
Yeah. So getting the legs.
So
there's 95 is optimal.
So there's a really good exercise I do, and it's about, we work in the cycling zones, and there's power zones, and we'll get into that a bit later. But for me to hold zone 3 at 80 RPM, I can do it for an hour. Ask me to slow down to 50 RPM, I am going to be hurting very quickly, because it's mashing. It is that squat rep type thing every time your leg turns over, whereas you can add in the motion into it, you can add in that energy into it, you take away some of that, because it's in the circle, you're putting the force, the angular force in, and you're taking away that need to start each rep with the leg. So the kind of momentum is keeping the spin going, and that's energy efficient essentially. So, but
I won't argue.
The individual who was asking this question had done one cycle and was like, oh no, I need a carbon fiber bike if I'm going to get better. So the argument was learn how to cycle that bike first, and then have a look into the more expensive end.
Yeah. Like, the thing is, you can cover any distance on just about any bike if it's set up right for you. Like Sean Kelly, all the lads, like the stuff, we have the technology now because bikes have had massive research in the past 20 years. And carbon, like, you asked me initially, what's the ideal starter bike? If the budget can stretch to a carbon fiber bike with 11 gears on the rear or more, go for it, because today's carbon is 5-6 years better than is twice as good as carbon from 5 years before that, and 3 times better than the carbon from 5 years before that. The carbon these days, they're able to lay it up where the bottom bracket area where the pedals connect, that's stiff where you want it to get the power delivery on. And once you get above that range, they've introduced flex and compliance in the upper frame to give the comfort, so it doesn't feel like you're sitting on top of a sheet of glass getting rattled down the hill. Like the modern like when you're like Eric, when you're sitting on your bike on the turbo trainer, you could see how much flex that top of the mast and the seat post actually had, because the carbon's designed for that now. If you got a bike, that same model bike from 2010, because I had that one, it didn't. It was rigid. It was like sitting on a piece of fiberglass. It actually very little compliance between the two wheels. So the newer bikes track the road better. They're more comfortable. And the more comfort, the further you're going to go, the faster you're going to go.
I feel so much better about seeing the records, the hills around here, and being like 3-4 minutes slower than people going up like half a kilometer of a hill.
Yeah.
They just got really fast bikes and better gears. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it than that, but
I'm after investing in a hill climbing bike, which is it's the lightest bike I've ever owned, and it's holding speeds going up the hill at 40-45k an hour. It's ridiculous.
What is a hill climbing bike? Can you see a difference looking at it compared to a regular
it's
bike?
Just the weight on it's actually, this is pared down to the absolute minimum just to get the weight right. Now it's a look frame, look 785 QS. It's designed for going up the Alps and like the Alpine stages, the tour, and that. It's all about climbing to the detriment of descending. To be honest,
for perspective, Gar, how heavy is it?
It's with pedals on 7.1 kilos.
So they build a bike that wouldn't even need a lift for Sean.
Yeah.
It's absolutely phenomenal how fine they've got it down to. Even the bike I've got. So initially, when I started my cycling journey, I knew that carbon was better. So I had the choice between the aluminium, the carbon with the aluminium fork, or the entry level carbon. But I think the fork is aluminium, and that's the one I
got. The flip of that, so it'll be alloy with a carbon fork is the way to do it, because the carbon forks then kill some of the vibrations out of it. So alloy frame with carbon fork, then full carbon frame and fork would be the way it goes.
Silly question alert.
Yeah.
That's just coming me for the entire podcast. But anyway, when we're doing Rio Kerry, and I've got much running cycling experience, so I was going to go back to that. A couple of stamps go up the hill, a mad gust of wind will come out of nowhere. I'm like, whoa! And it'll blow you living the road. With a 7.1 kilo bike, surely you're goosed.
Yeah, you learn to expect the crosswinds and actually putting that. And the thing is, I'm 97 kilos on the bike, so I'm putting that bike onto the ground. I'm not a small lad myself, like so. I have had bikes actually when I was walking along beside them lift from gusts of wind. Just actually walking with the saddle and it'd be up in the air like a kite. But yeah,
like I can't imagine that the weather conditions going up the Alps are better than the Rio Kerry. So like that's fairly. Like, are you sacrificing, like, you better be an experienced cyclist having this thing going up something like the Alps with a 7.1 kilo bike?
No, like, just it's more about experience. Like, for crosswinds and stuff and actually headwinds, you learn to know how to handle and expect them. Like, it's actually, like, I'm sure, Eric, at your job, you know.
Expect the unexpected.
Stuff.
Yeah, just kind of lean
into it and actually leaning in. It's actually like, especially if I'm out there moving along on a country road and there's a gap in the fence, I know to brace myself just for that gap. Or even the opposite, if I'm going down towards Nice or something on the dual carriageway and there's trucks going along the side and then there's a gap in those trucks, you better brace yourself because you will get buffeted and you just have to prepare for it. Like
it's just, you just lean into it a little bit. But like, guys, right, you add weight yourself. So a 50 kilo cyclist is going to feel it a lot more than myself would on the bike at the 90 plus. Yeah. But it is something, it's kind of like you're taking a corner without taking the corner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you just kind of lean in.
That corner comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. When you get into like the triathlon bikes with the deep section rims, like some guys are running like an 80 mil in the front and 100 in the back. If that's any sort of crosswind, you're going to get caught across the road.
80 mil, that's the length of the width of the tire.
The depth of the actual rim, the tire will be sitting on top of that. Like, so if you look at the lads doing the likes of Conan or any of the big long distance Ironman, like most of the guys who are doing the international series of Ironman, they'll have a selection of wheels for the day, like starting at 40 for aero purposes, 40 and 60. So you generally put a smaller one on the front and a slightly deeper one on the rear. But amping up to like 80 or 100, or maybe even just a solid disc where the rear wheel itself is just like a barrel. It's just actually a sheet. No spokes.
It's basically like an alloy, essentially. So you have your basic rim, you have your tire on it, and then from that tire towards the center is the 40 mil, 80 mil, where you're filling the gap of the circle with a sheet or plastic, carbon, whatever it is around, and they're the mil distance. And we spoke about it last week with Lorcan's bike. He had the disc on the back on the TT bike. The TT is a time trial bike. It's an aero bike. It's built for speed, but they will cover that rear wheel because over a certain speed, the stats, the figures, the data says that over 30 kilometers an hour, you're actually cycling easier on them bikes.
Yeah.
It's easier to stay faster.
Puts through the air and minimizes the turbulence.
So
that's the second time you blew me mind on that now. I have to go away and think about some of these stuff. Although for perspective, most times on a bike, I'm on those Airdyne bikes and work. So it's a completely different ball game. Go faster, I die. I get sick.
But it's the world of cycling it's complex. It is when you first walk in, especially Cycle Superstore, it's a phenomenal shop. You have every brand, like every brand you can think of is there, and it's like, I'm looking for a bike, and they're like, which bike? You could spend, I think I spent 4 hours in there looking around and seeing which one was going to suit. And the problem is as well, there's so much choice there now. There's so much competitive edge, and this was in the UCI, and this was in the tour bike, and this was the frame that won this and this. And how do people, I suppose, what is the best method for people to find the best solution for them? And that is, I suppose, the key thing. So for me, we ended up with Cube, and we can get back into that. But how do people kind of siphon through brands and siphon through I know we said we need an 11 speed probably and go for carbon and budget is going to be one, but how can you find the best to make your money go the best distance for you?
Well, one thing I really enjoy about working in the Superstore is they're not a pushy driven sale. It's actually, they try to get the product right for the customer. That's key, and something we drilled into all the staff is, and I was a manager with the guys there for years, not anymore. It's getting the right product for the customer. So the guy who comes in after reading the magazine saying, I want this bike, I want that, and I'm going to spend this much money. You just go, well, hang on a minute. Just why do you want this bike? That bike is good for the Alps, or it's good for cycling around Italy. Why wouldn't it be good for Ireland or Irish roads? So where are you going to be cycling? That's the first thing we asked them. Where are you going to be cycling? What sort of distance are you looking at doing? You plan on traveling with it? Are you going to be competing? And then it's a case of narrowing down the selection out of that, because most of our customers, there's a difference even in your standard road racer bike. There's what's called a race geometry bike, where the handlebars are going to be a little bit lower, and then a comfort geometry bike where the handlebars are going to be a little bit higher. And we call that measurement the handlebar stack. So the higher the handlebars are, the less leaned in you are, the more upright you're going to be. It's not going to win you a race, but it's going to be comfortable over longer distances. Like, it's for the endurance cyclists, for the guys doing 200 plus K an hour, 200 plus Ks in a day. That's going to be the one for comfort. It actually gets the shoulders up, not impinging the hips, fits the body a little bit better. Like the racing bikes, you'll see them with lads in the Tour de France, their back angle is around 35 degrees, 40 degrees. They're all down. They're just gunning it. That's all great when you're 17 to 25. But it's the guys above 30 that are riding those bikes. They're doing a lot of yoga and a lot of stretching to keep the position right. Either that, or they're raising the stem up and making it into an endurance bike without even knowing themselves. And the other thing we look at is, again, budget and availability. We're still not exactly where we want to be with stock availability across the trade. 2020 really messed us up with lockdowns. A lot of the manufacturers, they're based in the Far East, and their lockdowns extended longer than us. Some of them factories were closed for 2.5 years, and only now they're getting back up to filling the orders from a couple of years back still. I've got bikes still due from 2020 that they've upped the models and replaced the models as they come along. We're still on that number. So I say, I needed 100 bikes in from a certain brand in 2020. I probably only got 70 of them so far, and I'm still due 30 of that initial order, which is a bit crazy for customers walking in 3 years on past it saying, look, why can't you still get the bikes? It's the thing, like Shimano can only make a certain amount of gears in the year. SRAM can only make a certain amount of gears in the year. Cycling as a whole has quadrupled over the past 5 years globally, from the guys who want to commute to work and the guys who are competing. And just manufacturers can't increase the production that fast. So the other thing we do look at is availability of the bikes, but then also price points. So it's very easy to get the man who has unlimited pockets the bike that he wants, because it's generally at a much higher end, and the brands do have the pro spec bikes there ready to go. The guy who's looking for the entry level starting into the sport at these days at around 1,200 to 1,500 euros, you're going to have to make some compromises. And that's why I was saying, if you can get up to carbon, it gives you a bit more availability, because again, people want to buy a bike and ride that bike pretty much that month if they can. They don't want to be saying, yeah, you can order this bike now, give us a deposit, we'll have it for you in 2 years. That's getting less and less, but we did have cases like that. I had one guy waiting 14 months for his bike after paying the deposit. And we kept in touch with the supplier. But unfortunately, those delays can be there if it's the exact bikes you want. But Superstore is really lucky. The amount of stock they have, they will get someone moving on a bike quite quickly because we have the space and we actually have the know-how to get them in.
Have you seen this time of year now with the Tour de France? I heard it was one of the 5 most watched sporting events in the world, and now it's on Netflix as well. Has the demand gotten even greater over the last couple of weeks for bikes? Are you seeing?
Yeah, you get a lot more footfall in the store, but generally the guys who are buying a road bike, March to May is generally the best time for ordering because they're getting ready for all the events. Like the big leisure cycles like the Wicklow 200 and the Ring of Kerry and stuff. You don't want to be getting your bike the week of or the month of. You want to actually acclimatise yourself and get rid of all the niggles and get used to it. We 10 to 20 years ago, we would have seen people buying bikes in the middle of summer. Now people realise that they want to get it, that they realise there's going to be a bit of a lead time on some of the bikes that are after a specific one. So from October on, we'll be taking orders for next year's model of bikes, just because people know they'll be in stock in March. That's when they want them. So they'll place a deposit down, get on the order list then. If the bike comes in, we can hold it for themselves and then get it on as soon as it arrives, get them moving. But yeah, like the tour is great for that. Summer holidays is great for getting people in, getting commuter bikes and get the kids on the bikes. Then, like, because it's not just road racing and cycling, we do mountain bike stuff as well. Mountain bike and is really good in the winter. Then cyclocross, another discipline in the sports, actually got huge the past couple of years here in Ireland. We had the World Championship here over in Blanche there last December. It was over on the day. Yeah, there's a cross track over there now. But yeah, the tour, any big event gets people in the door. I do say now the amount of lads I get in the bike fitting trade coming in January after having a few drinks with their mates in the pub over Christmas and signing up for an Ironman or something, or a half Ironman is crazy.
You're ringing bells there.
And in steps Eric at the end of June to buy a bike. Big no, with a bike fitting 12 weeks out. What a legend.
Yeah.
Eric, you plonker.
Oh my God, if ever there was a man to break all the rules of what you should do.
But Eric, like, the thing is, you're already cycling. It's not as if it's your first bike and everything else. I've seen you on your existing bike, you're well able to ride that. So this case is when you pick up the new bike, it's going to be mint. It's going to be spot on for you. I've actually increased the accuracy of the fit that we did. So next time I have you in, we're going to dial it in all the way because I changed 1 or 2 specs on the actual fitting.
And this is the good thing, and we'll talk a little bit about my fitting. But there's one pet hate I want to talk about first. But the bike fitting itself is amazing. We'll get into it. But what do you think of electric bikes?
I think they're brilliant.
What do you think of electric bikes on charity cycles?
Again, like, the thing is, if it's getting people out pedaling and turning the legs, like, it's the lads who obviously wouldn't think of doing it before.
Gary, you're such
Gary, how much you turn the... I've never used an electric bike over at distance. How much are you really... Yeah, I see your point when you put it that way. No, I'm still going to fight against it. Like, how much are you really contributing to that bike turning on an electric bike as opposed to...
As opposed to a road bike? Like, the thing is, the e-bikes, the sporty drop handlebar ones are generally quite low assistance grade, so they help you get a bit of a push up the hill.
Okay.
Once you hit over 25k an hour, and like a road bike will easily get 25k an hour and hold it beyond that, the motor switches off. Like, legally, the motor has to switch off at 25k an hour, so it just helps you get up to speed. It conserves the energy of actually getting you up and starting up. But once you're trucking along, there's not that much assistance. Now, with the heavier, more handlebar, more upright bikes, you will generally be at the level of 25k an hour. But like, the guy who's in the Lycra in the drop handlebar bike should well be able to hit 25k an hour and keep that up with minimal enough effort. So the guy who's unfit or has a bit of a health issue or just wants to get out and spin the legs, he can actually keep up and give someone a lift up the hill or whatever else. We have I hadn't seen them before, little saddlebags that are a tow rope now that actually go off the back of the e-bikes to tug people up the hill.
Do you know what? You're beginning to change my mind on these bikes every day.
No, Gary, if I have to get towed up a hill off a saddlebar, I'll never hop onto a bike again. Or a saddlebag. God.
The best story I heard about the e-bikes, right? This lad, an experienced cyclist, did a bit of racing. I raced with him in the past. he was saying, yeah, himself and his dad used to race back in the day, but his dad's hitting 80 now at this stage. They were over in Spain and they wanted to go for a spin. So your man, he rented a nice road bike to get around on. The dad rented the e-bike. It was a drop handlebar e-bike, so it had a good bit of range on it. And your man was saying, yeah, it was grand. Yeah, we were slagging them all. The first hour, second hour, slagging them. You're only cheating. The dad was there yapping away, singing the songs all the way up and down the hills, having a rare all the time. But by hour 3, the lads were shutting up and the dad was still talking. And by hour 4, when they got home, the dad was still fresh. The lads were shattered.
Gone to bed.
The dad had fresh legs, fresh lungs. Had a minimal dinner. The lads got the usual. They'd empty the tank altogether, so they're eating the full buffet for the whole night. But it levels the playing field for people who wouldn't be able to get out there and do it. Another great.
I know. Look, and absolutely. I know we slagged because we did a charity cycle and we were on the bike and there was a bit of jest there because it was once an electric bike starts racing you though, that changes the game. But
no, that's not on. Well, if they're giving you a lift, they're giving you a tug. Grand.
I was raised, but. It is no different to people now when I say, I'm going for a run, do you want to come? They're like, Jesus, no, I'm not going running with you. But it puts that equity into company on a cycle. You know, if people know they have the assistance to go on a cycle with you, or they're more likely to go, yeah, actually, I'm not going to be dying. I have this better bike. It can be a way of being more inclusive for those who are training heavy, that want to include people around them that aren't majorly into the sport, but can enjoy a tour, can enjoy a long, easy spin. You know, it is good in that sense for getting people involved who wouldn't necessarily have thought they were capable of doing those kind of things. If the battery runs out, good luck cycling it.
You got that weight penalty there as well. That's the thing. Exactly. You keep an eye on that gauge, that fuel gauge all the way around.
Yeah, no, but it is a great way to think. It's and the Cycle to Work scheme has really helped. I know it's what got me involved in it. It's what got me actually buying a bike or considering a bike that was more suitable to what I wanted to do as well.
Yeah, no, Cycle to Work's been brilliant for the industry. It's actually like it came at just the right time where Ireland was getting more into a fitness kick. Also, I think the smoking ban was the first big push that actually got people more healthy. Because I've lived in various other countries, and you used to see a lot more outdoor activities across the board. Ireland's getting like that now. Sure, the amount of triathlons that are on, there's triathlons on every week these days.
Yeah,
everyone's
it's just a pity about the weather, and that's what I always say to people. If the weather held for 6 months, this would be a great outdoor lifestyle country.
Yeah, it would be amazing for that. But Cycle to Work scheme. It's amazing how easy it is to sell a bike on someone's bike to work scheme, because it also, one of the great things it did was it actually, some people would say that Cycle to Work scheme made bikes more expensive. It didn't really. Bikes pre-2009 were at very low quality. There was stuff that you wouldn't see for sale in Europe or for sale in shops in Ireland, because people still had a price point of the Rally Burner BMX they bought in the 80s for £55. They thought that was an expensive bike. Like, I've been right. The bikes I was buying in the late 90s, like I had one bike that was worth over £5,000 in the late 90s, in 90s money. So there was proper bikes out there, but like there's very few and far between. And for the level of quality that we're seeing there now, for people to be on competition grade bikes, like they do start at around 900 quid will get you something that will get you around the ring of Kerry, around the Wicklow 200. It's not going to be as good as the bike of 15 or 2,000 euros, but you do have that entry point now, and you don't get the bikes below that quality point anymore until you go to some of the bigger box retailers.
And this is the thing about value for the Cycle to Work scheme is if you want to think the Cycle to Work scheme is up to price your bike in France. It's the manufacturer who's setting the price point, and the shop size may add 100, it may add 200, but the bike's price is pretty much the price. And then consider buying your bike in France, and then go, actually, do you know what? The Cycle to Work scheme is not a bad deal, and then it's a good deal again.
Yeah, but like it's been great. Like it's the non-electric entry point now is what, €1,250.
1,200, yeah.
And then the e-bike credit is great at 1,500. Now they could do it actually raising that a bit more, because you don't get much of an e-bike for that sort of money. And then the cargo bikes at 3,000 is a great one, because that'll get a lot of people out of the cars and get the kids dropped off to school. And that's amazing to have there now.
One thing I've seen as well is people on their cargo bikes with the dog and the kid in the basket, and they're cycling around the park and stuff. It's absolutely brilliant looking.
Yeah. And even I've seen people out training. I was coming in from town there the other day, and there was a lady on a Trek racer, and then someone was on a big cube cargo bike with two kids in the front. Because he was electric, he was keeping pace with her. They were yapping along, kids and all. She was doing a bit of training. They were still trucking along at 20 odd K an hour through traffic. It was great.
And that's the whole idea of being inclusive, and especially when you're doing these long sports like an Ironman, it's lonely. I'm gonna be honest. I've done a hell of a lot of training on my own, and although it'd be nice to have people come along with me, they're not matching the paces or the powers I need to be at, or I'm not matching where they need to be. And that's where those little bikes, that little push can be like, oh, I can actually go with you on this one. And I can be like, oh no, they're sticking with me.
More pressure.
Yeah, get a target, keep you honest, keep you training.
So I suppose we've covered a lot of the basics, and I suppose more questions will be generated from the podcast. People will have follow-ups. We won't necessarily cover everything, Gary, and we'll send them on to you, and we'll try and answer them on one of our.
I'll definitely come back for questions if anyone has anything, because I get into the granular detail of what makes a bike good and everything else. So bore the pants off.
But let's do that, because from the base knowledge, respectfully, we're about to step it up a gear, pun intended. Yeah. So I had my initial bike fit with you because I was going to do an Ironman, but the Ironman was on my felt FR, my entry level that we're telling people to get. So it is doable, and I've been training on it, and it's been the Red Rocket for 4 years. But I'm taking on Ironman in Portugal, and I don't want to be out there all day. I can do it on this bike. I 100% can do it, and we know I can do it, but I wanted to make a difference in this cycle. The gauntlet is down on a time, and I wanted to see how close to that I can get.
How good we can get.
And that's when I walked in and I met Mick, and Mick was like, Gar, come here. What do you think? Look at the size of this fella. Yeah. So that was my experience, and we could have, and this is where I'm being, and I back you up on the point of, it's not necessarily the brand you're selling. I went in with a bike in my head that I seen that was shiny and nice online, and I was thinking of buying a Trek Madone SL6, I think, and the guys were like, how about you have a look at this bike, because the size was a size 62, it was probably more fitted to me, and for the spec of it, it was $2,500 cheaper than the nearest Trek bike.
Now, that's a couple of things, and I'm not going to disparage any brands that we don't sell in the Superstore there, but it's a Cube are phenomenal value for money. They're a German brand, and they're emerging on the market, and they only had their first race team the past few years, so they do price themselves remarkably competitively. And as a result, like, we're able to, with yourself, Eric, you're able to tweak the bike exactly where you are and still keep you under budget, because Eric's actually basically buying 2 bikes with this one. We're setting them up for the Ironman, but then he's going to have a great road bike afterwards. That's the beauty of it.
And that is the thing. So when I walked in, Mick has phenomenal experience as well, and he guided me towards the Cube. Was like, look, you're looking for all the mod cons. You will not get the same quality for the same price. No. And Gar backed him up, and then it was like, right, well, how do we turn this into an Ironman bike? And that's where Gar's expertise and the staff's expertise were absolutely phenomenal. So stage 1 was with Gar, and we said, between the two of them, Mick and Gar were back and forth about, let's put this on now, let's put this on there. They were just solving all of Eric's problems in front of him. I just shut up for a few minutes, and all of a sudden there was an aluminium handlebar going on with TT bars that are going to put me into a position. So I've now got a carbon handlebar that's no use, but I've got until I'm going on just a cycle. Yeah. And I've got an aluminium bar that's going to hold the TT bars to keep me in a good position. Yeah. The pedals we had to decide on that were going to fit me the best, get the best quality, the power meters. All of this happened within about 40 minutes maximum. Yeah. And I was booked in to come back into you a week later, Gar, for the bike fitting.
Yeah, so, well, a couple of things. Just want to run through a few things. The difference between a tri-bike, a triathlon bike, and a road bike. So your road bike is your standard racer with the drop handlebars, and everyone, you see them all over the place. A triathlon bike is the ones you see on the Ironman course with the much more aggressive lower down position on them. you'll never make a road bike into a full tri bike because the angle and position of the seat posts, but you can have a very good stab of it. And when I'm doing an Ironman style fit on a road bike, you need to be able to put clip-on bars onto a handlebar. The Cube as stock came with a lovely all-in-one cockpit, but it's an aero profile on it, so it's a teardrop profile on the top of the handlebars, and you can't put the extenders on. And I know Eric's level of flexibility. We want to give
not great.
We want to give a good buffer in the hips to allow the spine to recover for the run after the cycle. So I needed to buffer in a good rise ability on it. So the brand we sell in the Superstore there is the Profile Design range, and that has all the options for the extenders and then the risers to get them up. And just because we were fitting them onto that, we needed to go with an alternate handlebar, alternate stem, just to get what we call the whole cockpit right on the Cube. It's a couple of €100 to do that, but it's well worth in the end. And we can always just take off the clip-on bars and you've got top end road bike at the end of it. I have some pictures here just to show Sean in the background here. I'm actually going to minimize my camera up.
Okay.
To talk some numbers, right? Now the listeners can't see this, but if you want, I can send you on the pictures to actually have later for.
Yeah, we'll put them up on the post we put up when the day comes out. We'll put the pictures to go with this. So hopefully no one's listening to this podcast while driving and trying to go through these pictures and see what's going on. Well, you're looking at it later. We will try and talk through it.
You should be taking a leaf out of Gar's book and be cycling. Get out of that car.
Exactly. Sorry, give us a second. I'm going to jump in here. Should still be able to see this. So there's a man in his triathlon position. So what I'm looking at there, this is close to final on the bike. So when I get someone in for a bike fit, first thing I do is we do a physical assessment to see what level of flexibility we're at, see if there's any issues with any broken bones, any range of motion issues, any flexibility issues. Then for road bike cycling, we have a target back angle of around 45 degrees. So target angle from the hips to the shoulders of 45 degrees. For people doing triathlon, especially longer distance triathlon, we aim for that back angle to be closer to 35 degrees. There's a range there as well. And for longer distance triathlon, you do need to add a bit of a buffer to raise things up. So if I get this picture here, this is a good indicator. This is Eric's Ironman position for most of it. Now, when he's in this position,
you'll just have to slide your head a little bit, Gary, just so Sean
we're
can
still
see.
Visible on the camera. Let me drop this off. Sorry. I'll just vanish myself.
So what Gary's showing us now is, there we go. This is a picture of me actually
after
the bike fit. Yeah.
Okay, this is during the process.
Yeah.
So can you see the second picture moving around? No, you can't. It's an overlay on this. So I'm actually just going to go through the video and actually grab it. So this is him where he's going to be for most of the Ironman position. If you just keep an eye there on the shoulder, the back angle in this position, if I go to the numbers, now the retool sensor that he's wearing those pictures there are 3D motion capture. So I have a camera that captures him in motion. And this is the number I was actually looking at here. So if I go on to this is with the risers on with a 120 stem. This is leg extension, leg contraction, and ankle angle. These are all in the central in the zone. So I'm really happy with this. So then I go looking at the back angle. Back angle, a target for triathlon is between 30 and 40. He's hitting 34 degrees there. Now, I was really happy when he got that out of the extender position. But then you're not always going to be able to be on those extenders because your brake controls aren't there and your gear controls aren't there. So what I tried to do then is...
So just a second, guys, just to highlight. So the position Gary is showing us now, for those who are listening, it's me in the comfortable position. So my elbows are pretty much on the crossbars, on risers, in a comfortable padded, and my hands are directly out in front of me on the aero bars, for those who don't understand what we're describing. And that position is matching the angles that Gary is talking about that I should be in for this long distance. That's going to get me off a bike and get me running a marathon.
Yeah. The other one we look at is the elbow closure angle. So from the shoulder to the elbow, we aim for around 90 degrees on that. So you'll actually be a little bit more forward on the bike when you see it just from this still here. So I'm just going to move us forward here a little bit on this video. So when the man gets down into the drops here now, the key thing I was trying to keep is the back angle for when he's down in the gear control. So when he puts his hands down low, his back angle is pretty much identical. So he hasn't lost any aero advantage being down there. So on a triathlon bike, that'll be equivalent to the base bar. So if I just pair that back up, the shoulders barely move.
Gotcha, yeah.
on the data screen, right? The data screen will show you the angle was actually, it's this number here. So in that position, he was actually at 36 degree back angle. So really
so there's there's 2-degree difference between me coming out of the comfortable position into where I'm going to be controlling a downhill.
You're barely moving basically when your arms
barely moving, but in control,
very efficient,
like, and always in an aero position, but not too aero, as Gary was saying, not in the aggressive position.
We need to keep a buffer in the hips just to keep the spine nice and supple for the run. And then the other thing, when we're into the gear hoods here now, actually let's go through the iterations again. Gear hoods in standard row bike position on this machine, we're hitting the back angle here is actually 46 degrees, whereas actually I was actually aiming for 45, but that's close enough in the fitting ones. When we're on the final bike, the final build, you'll get that exact. But I was really happy with the outcome on this fit here.
So, and what people can't see in this, and it's something we'll put up pictures of, and Gary will send us on the pictures afterwards. And the next fitting, what we'll do is we'll record a lot of the fitting. Sean might actually come with us and we'll go through the whole process so people can get a feel for what's actually happening. But there's little stickers on every part of me, from my foot, my knees, every joint that's going up my body, that's showing you the angles through each rotation of my legs.
Sean, you can see my mouse here. So when I don't have the software running, column 3 is what we can actually see here. So this here is the sticker that's on his knee. So that actually refers to this. And this is the inwards outwards, the 3D motion part of it. So you want to get a straight line of the knee. You don't want the knee to be flexed anyway. So by getting the cleat stabilized, getting the shoe stabilized, and just making sure if there's any correction needed doing at the sole level, you can get the knee to track as straight as possible. And that's pretty much straight as a die, which when I look at the numbers here, this is the full data set that we get. The
Jesus. Just for people listening, like there's around, there's a 22, oh my God, he just scrolled down. There's around 30, 40 different things, without exaggerating. You're looking at different angles, like foot rotations, extensions of knees, hips,
when the
eyeballs.
This is actually moving. These numbers actually change. So the guy's pedaling away here, and you actually see this tracker coming up and down.
So there's 8 different moving points you're looking at: wrist, elbow, shoulder, hip, knee. 2 at the ankle from what I can see there, and the toes then as well.
2 on the foot, 1 at the ankle, knee, the hip, the shoulder, then the elbow and the wrist. So in this, in both cases here, in both positions, Eric's knee was only moving 2 degrees off dead straight, which is ideal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that comes down to power and mechanics. So if your knees are bending out or turning in by massive degrees, you're losing power to the outward motion of your leg. The more straight you can drive the piston, the more power you're exerting through the pedal. And that's why bike fits are so important for energy efficiency, for comfort. You heard Gary talking about keeping supple in the back so we can get off the bike and run. Would I be able to do a marathon or an Ironman without it? Yes. Would I suffer? 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm
just going to jump the numbers here for. This is the felt from a couple of years back because I keep age data, and then I'm going to get the Agree, which is the new bike in the hoods position. And sorry, just scrolling up and down through a couple of bits here. That's drops. That's not roads. Because when I have age data, what I do is I try and match people as close as possible to their old bike, their old fit. Now, the measurements on the bike will actually change a little bit because the bikes have changed a little bit and there's different levels of flex we're dealing with. But like, I do fettle the saddles maybe 1 or 2 mil over the course of a fit. And then when a bike is brand new as well, I do want to see people a couple of weeks later because the saddle's fresh out of a box, the foam is still fairly firm. And you just need to let that settle in a little bit. So, and even I get people to bring their shorts that they're competing in. Short padding can change. So the pads on the short will change quite a bit as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So on column 1 on this screen here now is at the relaxed position on the cube and the old felt. So the old felt, we had them at 44 degrees. The arms are a bit more straight on this. So the position on the 2 bikes in the hoods in the standard road bike position is pretty much identical. So I'm happy out with that. Then we actually fettled in the extenders and everything else. But the fact that we can compare to a previous version of yourself,
The level of detail is phenomenal. Do you have a picture there of Eric when he first came in, his first fitting and seeing that kind of difference?
I can bring up this video here. So because the Cube was a fresh bike, we don't have a before and after.
Okay.
Look at the mask, because it was COVID. Look at the
time, right?
Oh, wow.
So this is when he arrived in, right? It's the first time I met the man.
Like you can see even, maybe it's just...
I'd no hair then, Gar. I'd no hair.
Yeah.
You've more hair than me there still.
So what I'm going to do is look here. Well, the first thing I do when I get now he's down the drops there now, which is not ideal.
Do you give him any cues or anything? You just want to see how he cycles here? Is that what happens?
When they come in first, I'm just assessing to see what's wrong with the bike now. Before we go to the after video on this, I'm just looking here. Cleats, probably would adjust them in and out a little bit just to get them right. His leg extension isn't right. You need to actually raise that saddle a little bit. The other thing I look at is where the knee is when it's over this position here. That saddle is too far forward by around 15 mil. Because his knee is that much over the pedal spindle. That's a key metric we actually use. So that saddle is too far forward altogether. Back angle isn't bad, and he is what I call Frankenstein a little bit. The shoulders are up into the sockets. He's no range of motion in the sockets there now. So I'm actually just going to load up the after video on this session here. So
it's funny because
he's taking.
There's the after.
So after, I'll get into the same leg position that I always take the metrics out of. So, so there, the leg is extending, the foot isn't overextending. You can see the dots on him from the center. The knee is over the pedal spindle, even though it's blurred there. Arms are well open, arms are relaxed, the elbows are able to flex. So that's a much more. That's a proper fitting on the bike. It's
absolutely amazing.
The past couple of years.
And just to highlight Gar's expertise, as he was looking at me raw on the bike there, what happened in that fitting is we tried to raise the seat post because he was like, no, you're not in the right seating position. Yeah. We ran out of seat post. The seat post wasn't big enough. Therefore, the bike was probably a frame too small. But remember, as Gar said at the start, you can build into a smaller frame bike, you can make it fit. And we ended up replacing the seat post with a bigger one to get me into the right.
Get the stretch onto it because it's there.
So on that bike in itself, I was never going to be in the right position until I met Gar, and that has got me through the Mizzen to Malin. It's got me through all the training I've done to date, and now we're taking it a step further with the tri bars, with everything else, and it's just highlighting again how important it is for a bike fitting when you're getting a bike, not only to just make sure you're in the right position, you're staying injury free, Gar, you're feeling how it is to ride a bike correctly. So when you start off riding a bike correctly, you'll know whenever a bike is not right for you. And it's a phenomenal start. You're going to avoid injuries. You're getting expertise. Like I was watching Gar put together this, put together that. And I was like, I have to take this bike apart to fly to Portugal. And I was like, Gar, can I come back in and get you to show me how to take this bike apart and put it back together again? There's expertise and knowledge that goes beyond, and it's a shame as a podcast we'll have to start putting up YouTube videos of this, but it's absolutely phenomenal to see the difference in me and the comfort difference, because what used to cause me to suffer through 90, 100 kilometers, I'd be like, there's no way I can do this. After a bike fitting, it's that 180k wasn't that bad today. Actually, my legs are a bit tired, but it's amazing the difference it makes into your efficiencies, into your comforts, into your physical.
Efficiency is the key.
Just to show Sean this here, like just so you know, well, I'm looking at this here in the post fitting, right? What's happening here is the bike is actually supporting the skeleton. So from the hips to the shoulders to the hands, that's a triangle. It's a good 90-degree triangle. That's a natural stability point there. So that means your core is supporting your shoulders. Your hands aren't taking a lot of weight in those bars there. That's why you're not actually exerting a lot of energy to keep yourself right there. And the other thing, just about the power delivery, like if the saddle is too low, you're going to be putting too much weight on the bum there and actually causing a bit of discomfort. The other thing I find a lot, especially people who are triathlon training, Eric's a good example of this here. When we're looking up and over, he doesn't have great flexibility at the top of the pedal stroke, so the ankle can't actually drop anymore. And this is why we would actually look at raising the saddle a little bit more, because what's happening here is the ankle is pretty much at the max range of motion here and sort of pushing the thigh up and out a little bit just to rock the hips a little bit. So we'll get the sweet spot of the saddle height there. And then for power delivery, the 4 aft is great. Now you're going to see, Eric, on the actual new bike, when you've got the power meter, we can fine tune you to exact. So we'll get you off to do 10K, take a reading, come back, do another 10K. We'll fettle that saddle to exact to get 100% for yourself.
And when you're going for distances like Ironman, it's all about power. It's all about how you can hold that power.
Moving, keeping the FTP up.
It is the aim of the game over the distance.
Phenomenal.
So I think we've blown Sean's mind, Gar. I think
Sean as well, like get yourself in for a fit. We actually go through the lot. When Eric's coming in for the final pickup of the bike, right? We'll run through an actual fitting as if he was walking in on it, and we'll take all the measurements again in the video.
If you saw what the bike I come in with, Gary, you'd send me packing. You'd be like, bike, that belongs in that recycling bin over there. You need a brand new bike, son.
Like the green machines that used to slide around the corner.
Yeah, maybe October, November for next season.
Yeah. But even if you are, definitely if you're looking at a bike, you can grab a bike on the shop floor or get you fitted onto that as well. But the other thing I do offer as a service, if people don't have a bike, I have the Retool Move bike, which is an adjustable machine. So we can dial in any bike off a catalogue and actually simulate that. Like, as people are pedaling, you can actually adjust it and actually track it up. Now, I do find we get better results. It's a quicker process to do on the actual bike you're going to be. But for guys who are actually doing like mail order sort of bikes or custom frames, I've got a few custom frames made up off this. So we work off the basic templates. You can try different handlebar widths, different stem lengths, different crank lengths. We can personalize all that, get the different saddle on, then get the ideal fit on that on the data. And we order up the bike based off that. And then we actually work backwards and build up the bike to those exact measurements.
I mean, that sounds like a lot more hassle for someone who's just wants that particular bike and has a mindset. And I mean, Eric's red bike, that sounds to me like he should never have gotten that bike if you have to start changing saddle heights and stuff like that.
No, it's if you have the bike, we can generally make the bike work for you. But before you purchase,
you're better off getting the fitting first.
Yeah, not even a full fitting, just to make sure everything's going to be in the ballpark. Because I knew, because I fitted Eric before, I knew what measurements we actually needed. Like myself or Mick or any of the lads in the shop now, the older the lads, the more experienced we're going to be. We'll take one or two looks at you and say, yeah, we need to do this, and this on the bike. Get the bike customized to yourself.
Not to blow smoke up your backside, but I'm assuming now, like when you look at someone on a bike before, like the numbers are just. You probably have an eye for at this stage what's going on, and the numbers are just backing up what you're saying. So if you probably like you said at the start of the podcast, if you're cycling behind someone for 2 minutes, you could probably see straight away this, and this. Just for the general Joe Sub walking in like yourself. So the general Sean walking in, like what do you see is the most kind of, I suppose, just takeaways for people listening? Common mistakes people are making when they have a bike already purchased that's coming into for fitting, and you're like, this person's after doing this red flag again and again you see popping up, or is it different for everyone?
Because I'm seeing people from buying bikes from all over the country and all over the world, a lot of the time people are very close, but it's the last couple of adjustments is actually getting it right. Now, in some cases, things are well off. The worst case I had is one guy, I had to raise the saddle 7 centimeters. I had to extend his handlebars 3 centimeters before I fitted. And this guy was off doing 150, 100, 200k cycles with a club, and no one would tell him that his bike was that far off. Like, that's a crazy amount. But one of the big things I'm seeing at the minute now is cleat position. There's been a lot of research on where we put the cleats to optimize biomechanics on it. And especially guys who've been riding the bikes for the past 20, 30 years, they haven't updated themselves. And even myself, after I got my first retail fit from Shane, the guy who was before me, it actually took me to go to the year to get used to the actual proper modern position, because I had to unlearn 20 years of riding, and just the position I actually got myself accustomed to. Especially when I went to the newer shape saddles. The saddles now have got wider and shorter. That took me 6 weeks to get used to. But getting the most important thing I could say is the contact points. Get the shoes right, get the saddle right, get the hand position right, and then get the fitness up after that. Because once you know you're not going to do yourself any damage on the bike, you can go for it.
And there was a lady that was there to help me. Rachel, was it Rachel who was with me that day?
Rachel's amazing for the Triger.
Rachel is amazing. So not only was I there to do a bike fit, I was there to get kitted out for an Ironman. And I said it to Sean before I went in. I was like, I can buy cheap, I can buy twice, or I can put the best gear on me and then just see what happens. And then there's no excuses. Then there's no, well, if I had this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was walking around looking at helmets, kicking shoes, and going, I've no idea. And Mick and Gary were like, you need to talk to Rachel. And they found Rachel in the corner. She was throwing helmets around, and happy as Larry, up stepped Eric. Within 15 minutes, I was, after being in and out of the changing room with the perfect tri-suit that fit me first time. She picked a helmet that fit me perfect. Because everyone's all about the aero helmet for triathlon, and she showed it to me, put it on. She was like, I don't think it's for you. And I was like, no, you're right. She could just tell by me what was working, brought me down, got a fantastic helmet that's kind of the hybrid aero but road helmet. Shoes, she was putting things, she was like, I don't like them on you, I don't think they're right. Then we ended up ordering another pair of shoes in from a supplier to get me into the exact shoes she thinks now that and subsequently all the kit and equipment matched, so I'm going to be very matching for the Ironman. She was absolutely phenomenal and had a phenomenal wealth of experience from her own experience in the middle distance.
Yeah, so it's Rachel's been with the store for almost 10 years now at this stage, so she's huge. And she looks after all the clothing these days, but Troy gear particularly, like the range of wetsuits that are there these days. Hecking them is amazing.
It's absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. So if you are, and I'll reiterate, and Gary, we've taken enough of your time tonight. We'll have to start wrapping it up. But those who can listen, or those who can or are interested in the sport, it really was a one-stop shop for me to get the best advice, because I've no idea what I'm doing. Let's call it a spade. I haven't a breeze what I'm doing. But as I said to Lorcan, I've no excuses now. I still think at 20, but I've no excuse. I've got the best bike fit from one of the best bike fitters that I can find, who was honest with me, wasn't trying to sell me things. It was just, no, this can work. We'll make this work. You've got a great bike under you. I was like, but should I be buying the more expensive? I was like, don't worry about it. Look at the spec you've got. We'll make this work. This is fantastic. Someone wasn't trying to sell me the best, the most expensive helmet. They were like, nah, it doesn't work for you. This is the best thing. And Rachel got involved. Mick has been working on the power meters for me, getting everything. And I just left amazed. I was like, this is brilliant. I feel like I have a chance now. And that's just for me, who's had a little bit of experience. But going in as a beginner, you're going to be so looked after. It is an experience. It is a big investment. It's an investment in you. And if I can recommend it to anyone, just walk in. Just walk in with an open mind and say, I'd like to be able to cycle to work. I'd like to be able to cycle 70K and just watch the magic happen and just trust in the process. And it's absolutely amazing.
Gary, do you have any social or any way people can get in touch or see more of your stuff online?
Myself right now is GaryByrneBikeFit.com. You get it's the website there available for bookings and all the info on the service that I actually offer. The retail motion bike fits there. You will find me most days of the week, weekday mornings in the Cycle Superstore on the shop floor there as well. But on the website there, you get all my contact details. I do have an Instagram set up, but it's fairly inactive at the minute. I'm useless to actually updating stuff on it. But if you need to get me either through the Cycle Superstore number there, 31 Ayrton Road, 014632270. That's 014632270. On weekdays, you get Mick if you need any advice on bikes, or any of the staff can actually update you. Drop into the shop there. It's a stunning showroom if you haven't been in. They have bikes, they've the entry-level kids bikes, they've commuter bikes. But if you want to see the top of the line world-class race spec bikes, like there's a gallery of some fantastic machines up there. Even if you're not buying, just go and have a look, see what people are actually on, because you actually get an experience there. Wetsuits, tri-suits, the whole shebang, well fitted for all that. That's Cycle Superstore, 31 Ayrton Road in Tala. Myself, Gary Byrne on GaryByrneBikeFit.com. Hit the lads up if you need to get me. I'm sure the lads through your own socials, bounce them onto myself. Any questions, if you want to get me back in for actually bike tech questions or anything, no problem at all. You know.
And we will see you in the next couple of weeks, Gary. We will put on our own social media of the process of me going through the fit for the Ironman. We'll have all the gear, we'll have the shoes, everything that we've talked about on this. I know a lot of it was for Sean's benefit in terms of showing the visuals, and we tried to keep you as in touch as we can, those who are listening. But if you do want to see more, do visit the website. Thanks so much, Gary, for coming on to this week. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, and like I say, Eric, you don't know, most of your stuff is there waiting on the parameter, so it's like it's
get back in here.
No, it's only it's I need to fit you on the actual components themselves because I changed a couple of things from that fit because I got some better suited bars and stuff. So we'll just do another quick fitting session to get that all exact. I want to get you start training on the bike and actually, because the clock is taken on the calendar there.
Yeah. And if I didn't need another reminder, I have to get back on my glorious felt that's sitting on a turbo for an hour. So thanks so much, Gary. And again, thanks to everyone who's listened this week for this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. Sean, anything else to add this week?
No, that's it for myself. Gary, thank you again. And Eric, take care.
All the best. Talk to you. All the best.
Bye.